Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. If this is the first time you see my face, I would love it if you subscribed as I post videos every week at 5 PM. Yes, I am wearing a Christmas jumper and no, I won't apologise about it. I've actually ordered another Christmas jumper because this one is getting a bit snug on me now, so I'm really excited to have another Christmas jumper in my collection. Also, if you see any paint swatches behind me, please just try and ignore them. Today's video might seem a bit random, but it's one that I wanted to film for a while and just never really got round to it. So today I'm going to be talking about where you can go if you're thinking about going on a gap year. I know that right now this is a little bit more difficult, but I'm hoping that this video will help people in the future. And with the news about a vaccine, things might happen more soon than expected, hopefully. So I'm going to run through a bunch of different destinations that you could decide to go on your gap year. You could go on one, you could go on multiple. I'm going to run through the different points of things that you could go there for, whether it's cheap or expensive, and obviously I'm going to be talking from a UK perspective, so I'm going to point out if they are speaking English predominantly in the country or not. I know that I'm very privileged in the fact that I was born speaking English, and lots of people have to learn English as a second language when we as a country just don't really put the same emphasis on learning other languages, so that's something that I want to point out, but it is something that I'm also going to be noting if you're thinking about a country. So without further ado, let's just get started. So the first country that I'm going to touch on is Thailand. I think this is probably the country that most people think of when they think about a gap year. I've actually been to Thailand twice now. The first time I was about 5, so I don't remember much, and I went again last year. I did a vlog of it, which I will put up in the cards up here. I wish I'd vlogged more, but I was on a group tour and I felt a bit self-conscious to be vlogging, but I'm hoping to go back next year maybe, hopefully, and if I go back next year I'll definitely vlog more for you. So Thailand basically has it all depending on where in the country you go. Down in the south there's obviously beaches, islands, parties, and then if you go up in the north there's adventure, there's zip lining, there's mountains, there's jungles, there's treks, and then obviously you have Bangkok, which is an absolutely vibrant, buzzing capital which has absolutely everything you need. You can do so much in Thailand. You can travel around the whole country and see everything that they have to offer. Obviously amazing wildlife and nature as well. You can learn to dive, you can learn Muay Thai, I'm not sure how you say that, or you can just relax on the beaches. They obviously have the full moon party, you can island hop. It's just endless amounts of stuff to do in Thailand. Obviously a main selling point of Thailand and most of Southeast Asia is the fact that it is so cheap. You can buy some street food for like £2 or less and it's so good and cheap. You can probably stay a bit longer in Thailand because obviously your money will stretch further there than it would if you were at home. Most people in Thailand speak English as well. Obviously it depends where you go. If you go up in the north there might be less people that speak Thailand, and obviously you can't expect people to speak English, but it is a really good selling point about it if you're thinking about that. Another great thing about Thailand is that there are loads and loads and loads of other backpackers. Like I said, it's probably the #1 destination people think of. Lots of people go there solo, and also lots of people are doing the same route around Southeast Asia, which is like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos. So if you're thinking about doing that loop, then if you make a friend in one country you'll probably bump into them again along the way. So it's super easy to make friends, especially if you stay in hostels. I've been talking for so much already. I think this video is going to be a long one. If you're wondering why I keep glancing down, I have made some notes so that I don't forget anything. The second country I'm going to be talking about is probably the next popular destination, and it is Australia. Most people go to Australia for a working holiday visa, which obviously isn't viable right now, but hopefully it'll be viable again sometime in the future. I think it's a great option because obviously from the UK it's really far to fly to Australia, so you kind of want to be staying for a long period of time to make that worth it. Obviously it's a great way to fund your travels as well. One absolute selling point of Australia that is one of the reasons that I would like to go one day is to have Christmas on the beach. The fact that they just have Christmas in summer is absolutely mind-baffling to me, and I would love to experience that one day. Australia is obviously massive, so there are so many different selling points in Australia that you can go to. You can go to visit Uluru, you can go and see the Great Barrier Reef, you can do amazing road trips all along Australia and just never run out of things to do. And obviously in Australia they do speak English. One downfall though is that it can be really expensive, which is another reason why so many people go for the working holiday visa, I think. The third country I'm going to touch on is the USA. Obviously the USA is massive and there's so many different things to do that you can't even just list them all in one video. You do speak English obviously. You can do a road trip throughout USA. It can be really expensive, however there is less public transport running throughout the USA, so I feel like your easiest option will be a road trip if you're thinking about that. I've heard from other travel vloggers that there is less backpackers, especially especially solo ones in the USA. So if you're thinking about going on a gap year to USA, I think it would be best to bring some friends. You can obviously do Camp America, which is a great way to make friends. It's a massive selling point for USA. Like I said, the USA has so much to offer because of its vast size. There is sea, there is mountains, there's just an endless amount of things to do. Next, I'm going to move on to South Africa. Obviously, they speak English predominantly in South Africa. It depends where you go, like I said before. Massive selling point of South Africa is obviously the safaris. I would love to go and see a safari in South Africa one day. I also did my dissertation on apartheid, so I would love to visit Cape Town and see the Apartheid Museum and discover more things about that. South Africa's kind of got a bit of everything. It's got the big cities, it's got the beaches, it's got mountains. Whatever you're looking for, you can probably find it in South Africa. However, it is a bit more expensive in South Africa, and I feel like it wouldn't be a good destination for a first-time backpacker or traveller. You might need to be a little bit more confident to venture out to South Africa. But again, if you want to, I'm not telling you not to do it, I'm just giving suggestions. Don't come for me. Now we're going to move on to Peru. Peru has absolutely got a bit of everything as well. It's got jungle, it's got desert, it's got beach, it's got the Andes Mountains, it's got the Inca Trail, it's got Machu Picchu. I'm really hoping to get to Peru in 2022, hopefully. Machu Picchu is a massive like bucket list dream moment of mine, and I would just love to go and do that. I think it would be absolutely amazing. It's just one of those places where you always see online or on a postcard, and it's hard to imagine that it's actually real, if that makes sense. Apparently Peru is also quite cheap, and so is its neighbouring country of Bolivia. They do speak Spanish in Peru, which I don't know any Spanish at all, so I think that would put me off a little bit. I'd probably want to go to Peru with a group tour rather than by myself. Also, there seems to be a good bus service in Peru and its neighbouring countries, but no trains. So if you're thinking about exploring neighbouring countries or South America, that's something to consider. Next country on my list is Brazil. Brazil is beautifully diverse, however, it is a bit more expensive than countries like Peru and Bolivia. We obviously have the Amazon, but you can also visit Amazon in other countries like Peru and Bolivia, which might be a little bit of a more cheaper option. They speak Spanish and Portuguese in Brazil, but I think one of the big selling points of Brazil that I would love to go and visit is Carnival. I touched on Southeast Asia earlier, and I'm going to bring it up again. I'm going to talk about Vietnam. A lot of people in Southeast Asia as a whole, but specifically also Vietnam, speak English. It is well connected with rail and bus services, and also you can hop in the neighbouring countries as well. It's got good food, it's cheap, there's temples and there's wildlife. Again, there's a bit of everything for everyone. Another country which I'd maybe recommend for more experienced travellers is India. India is absolutely massive and diverse as well. In India they speak Hindu and English, so you'll probably be able to find people that speak English to help you. Apparently India is also very cheap, and there's train networks around the country, so if you're wanting to experience all of India, that might be quite easy. There's lots of things to do in India. You can ride camels into the desert, you can visit beaches, explore the beautiful temples and the palaces. Obviously India has the Taj Mahal, which is another bucket list item for me, so that's a massive selling point. Sorry if anything moved, I just had to change out my battery. I'm going to talk about New Zealand next. New Zealand has beaches, snow-topped mountains, and they speak English, which is really good. However, New Zealand can be more expensive. But if you're a big fan of The Hobbit, I'm thinking that you want to go to New Zealand because obviously they have the whole Hobbit village there. If you're thinking about islands, a great place to visit is the Philippines. Backpacking Bananas stayed in the Philippines for 3 months, I think, and she has an amazing series on solo backpacking in the Philippines, so if you want to check that out, I really recommend it. I think a lot of people in the Philippines do speak English, especially in the more touristy areas. However, Christine from Backpacking Bananas does mention that it's a bit hard to get around the Philippines because there's not really any public transport and you have to ride a scooter. So if you're not comfortable riding a scooter, I'd maybe suggest a group tour. The Philippines is really cheap, and there's a lot of other backpackers and solo travellers that you're going to meet there, so you're definitely going to make friends. You can learn to dive in the Philippines if that's something that interests you, and there's so much beautiful nature to see. It's absolutely incredible. The second last place I'm going to touch on is Indonesia, which is kind of similar to the Philippines in the fact that they speak English mostly, but it's hard to get around with public transport. Again, you kind of need a scooter. If you're not comfortable with that, maybe I would suggest a group tour again. Obviously most of the people going to Indonesia are going for Bali, so I think the prices will vary and the levels of English will vary, because obviously Bali is going to be quite touristy, and people have recommended other places that are kind of like Bali but less touristy and a bit more authentic. There's so many different islands to visit though, so it's all up to personal preference. Obviously, like I said, the price varies, but overall it's Southeast Asia. It's going to be very cheap compared to at home. Obviously it's really popular with backpackers and solo backpackers, so you're going to make friends there as well. The last place I'm going to talk about is the continent of Europe. Obviously people want to travel to Europe but they don't specify really what country. Europe is pretty big and it's really diverse, so it kind of depends what area of Europe you're looking to travel in. Most places do use the euro, but some places that you don't think have got their own currency, like Hungary, so you need to be mindful about that. There's a ton of different countries in Europe as well, but most people do speak English. Europe is really easy to get around, however it's not that cheap. I think Europe is probably one of the most expensive places, along with the USA and Australia, to visit. There's this thing called Interrail which makes it really easy to travel Europe, so you can buy your passes and kind of create a plan of where you're going to visit on that website there. So if you can check that out, I'd really recommend that. I think I've pretty much touched on everywhere, but obviously I've given you the kind of rundown of the different places, pros, cons, what you kind of need to expect going there. Obviously you're going to have a list of things that you want to achieve on your gap year, whether you want to learn to dive, whether you want to go into the jungle and trek, and obviously different countries are going to tick different checklists. If you've got any more suggestions, although I think I've covered everything, put them in the comments down below. Let me know if you've been on a gap year, where you went, or if you're planning on a gap year, where do you want to go. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe as I post videos every week at 5 PM. I'll see you guys then. Bye!